An MD-80 is taking off from Madrid Airport with 172 passengers. However, just seconds after liftoff, the aircraft begins to descend. What happened? Here's what we know. Spanair Flight 5022 is a passenger service from Barcelona to the island of Gran Canaria, with a stop in Madrid. It is also part of a code-share agreement with Star Alliance, operated under Lufthansa's designation LH25-54. Spanair was a Spanish airline founded in 1986 that ceased operations on January 28, 2012. At 1 in the afternoon, Flight 5022 leaves the gate and begins pushback and engine start for its departure to Gran Canaria Airport. The aircraft is a McDonnell Douglas MD-82, built in 1993 and originally delivered to Korean Air. In July 1999, it joined Spanair's fleet, which registered it in Spain under the tail number EC-HFP. The aircraft is equipped with two Pratt & Whitney JT-8D engines, designed to provide the necessary power during flight. The captain is Antonio Garcia Luna, 39 years old with 8,476 flight hours, 2,700 of which were logged as an Army officer. His experience on the MD-80 amounts to 5,776 hours. The first officer is Francisco Javier Muley, 31 years old. He has been with Spanair for only a year and a half and has 1,276 flight hours, 1,054 of them on this aircraft type. At 1:25 in the afternoon, Flight 5022 is on runway 36 left with clearance for takeoff. However, the crew detects a problem. They notice an abnormal reading in the RAT-1 probe, one of the temperature gauges, so they decide to abort takeoff and return to the stand. At that point, the captain informed the passengers that the aircraft had a malfunction and suspended the departure. The maintenance technicians approach the aircraft and begin working. After several minutes, it is confirmed that the heating circuit of the RAT probe was damaged, and dry ice was used to cool the sensor. The minimum equipment list allowed the aircraft to be dispatched with the probe's heating system inoperative, as long as icing was not expected during the flight. Since such conditions were not forecast, the heating system was deactivated and the aircraft was declared fit for service. At 2:15 in the afternoon, Flight 5022, now more than an hour behind schedule, begins taxiing to runway 36 left for the second time. On board were 166 passengers and 6 crew members. At 2:23 in the afternoon, the aircraft was once again on runway 36 left with clearance for takeoff. But problems arose. The pilots did not extend the flaps or slats. Without these lift devices, the wings could not generate enough lift to keep the aircraft airborne. At 2:24, the brakes were released and the aircraft began its takeoff roll. The warning system, which should have alerted the crew to an incorrect configuration, did not trigger the alarm. Flight 5022 reached 147 knots when the nose landing gear lifted off the ground, activating the stall warning shaker. At that moment, the pilots believed there was an engine failure and did not realize the aircraft was improperly configured. The MD-80 climbed to an altitude of 40 feet above the ground, then veered to the right, lost altitude, and crashed near the runway, breaking apart into several pieces that were consumed by the ensuing explosion. The cause of the accident was that the crew lost control of the aircraft due to an aerodynamic stall immediately after takeoff. This happened because the pilots did not extend the flaps and failed to properly follow 3 different checklists. The crew did not recognize the stall situation, nor attempt to correct it. The report cites 2 contributing factors. First, the takeoff configuration warning system, which failed to operate, and second, inadequate crew resource management, which allowed them to deviate from procedure. The flaps located on the wings are essential for takeoff. The final report of the Civil Aviation Accident and Incident Investigation Commission indicates that the recorded flap deflection values were 0 degrees. That is, they were never deployed, leading directly to the accident. It was determined that, in their rush to depart, the pilots did not fully carry out the checklist, skipping flap configuration on 3 separate occasions. The takeoff configuration warning system did not trigger an alert, so the pilots proceeded with the takeoff roll with the flaps retracted, unaware of the problem. No sound from the warning system was recorded during the maneuver. One possible explanation is that the technicians manipulated the K33 circuit breaker and forgot to restore it, leaving the warning system disconnected. However, it could not be conclusively determined that this was the cause. Of the 172 people on board, 154 died in the crash or later in the fire, including the 6 crew members. Each life lost represented a universe of stories, families, and dreams cut short in a matter of seconds. The magnitude of the disaster left an indelible mark on the aviation community and on the memory of those who witnessed that day. The survivors, though few, faced not only the physical impact but also the emotional trauma of having lived through the tragedy. Their accounts helped reconstruct the final moments of the flight, allowing investigators to understand the chain of errors that led to the accident. Every detail, from the incorrect flap configuration to the failure of the warning systems, was crucial in piecing together how the catastrophe unfolded.